Coming up on this week's show, a new demo for a forgotten console lands.
An arcade classic gets remastered for the C64.
And Cambridge University wants to preserve your floppy disks.
And the Retro Hour podcast is made possible every Friday thanks to our incredible sponsors, including our mates at Replay Events. Now, they're bringing the UK's biggest retro games market back to London on Sunday, the 9th of November at the Royal National Hotel in Russell Square, London. Now, this has been running for 10 years, still the biggest and the best. Pop along and get some incredible bargains. Doors open at 10:30 a.m. and you can get your tickets right now at londongamingmarket.com. And our friends at Bitmap Books, who will actually be there at the London Gaming Market, showing off their entire library, plus their new volume, The Definitive Book of SNES RPGs Volume 1. Now, weighing in at more than 550 pages, this first book covers the letters A to K, so you can expect games like Eye of the Beholder, Breath of Fire, Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, and lots more as well. You can pre-order your copy right now and check out the rest of their retro gaming collection at bitmapbooks.com. Hello and welcome to the Retro Hour podcast, episode number 503, your weekly dose of retro gaming and technology news with me, Dan Wood.
Me, Ravi Abbott.
And me, Joe Fox.
And great to have you joining us for the podcast that comes out every single Friday and just loves the world of old school video games and computers, brings you up to speed on all the big stories from the world of retro from over the last 7 days, and welcomes on veterans of the industry for a chat on the show in the second half every single week. And this week, we're coming to you live from the massive Amiga 40 event in Germany. Now, to not want to, spoil the magic too much, we're actually recording this before we go to Germany. Even though Ravi and I do look a bit rough because we've both got the man flu at the moment, dread to think what we'll look like in 2 weeks when we're actually back from Amiga Germany.
We're saving people from that. Yeah.
Hence why if you're watching YouTube, we're all wearing the same clothes. People will be watching it going, hang on, those guys are scummers wearing the same outfit 2 weeks in a row. I've changed my jacket to try and disguise it, but yeah, there's a magic room.
Don't you wash your shirts, Dan?
But yeah, so we have just been out to Amiga Germany when this podcast lands. And Ravi actually hosted one of the panels there with someone who was behind some incredible games on the Amiga back in the day, including some of the Settlers games, Lionheart, lots more as well. Today we're going to be hearing from Eric Simon.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting interview. I haven't done it yet, but, it's going to be a live recording from the show. And Eric Simon has a great Amiga history as well. So he was a founder of Valiant, which, it's a really big company. Some of their games got ported onto the PC as well, the Atari, and they actually started in the demo scene for the Atari ST. So I always think these demo scene developers are absolutely amazing. The quality of their kind of coding and work, and then they're getting transferred into games, particularly Lionheart. It looked beautiful, and to think that was done, for a minimum spec Amiga. Absolutely stunning. Amber Moon as well, which is a great title.
They were really atmospheric games, weren't they? And I think the Henk Nyborg, he did the graphics, didn't he, on Lionheart? Yeah. Which was a gorgeous looking game. I think it's in terms of 2D platformers on the Amiga, probably my favorite looking.
Yeah, it was tough with Amiga platformers because there was a lot of trash out there, and this definitely wasn't that. This was one of the most premium, high-end platformers for the Amiga as well, and no second prize as well, which was quite a revolutionary game at its time. Later on, he worked for Blue Byte Software as well, which is a German developer. They ended up doing like the continuation of the Settlers series. So we've just seen the release of Settlers 2 recently for the Amiga again. That was a PC title. It's kind of returned home. He wasn't involved in that, but he was involved in Settlers 3 and 4. And I think, Settlers went on quite a lot. He's also involved in Anon as well, which is another a modern game, but kind of based around that Settlers Civ kind of strategy and way of playing.
It's interesting you mentioned as well, you touch on them that he was in the demo scene originally, because he's part of a Atari ST group called The Exceptions back in the day. They started in 1986. And I think you really saw when
game developers had that demo scene foundation. I mean, look at games like Lionheart, you can see, that they really knew how to make the hardware sing, didn't they? That they understood it inside out, which I think really showed.
Yeah, they knew all the tips and tricks and how to kind of, do stuff that others couldn't and really push the machine. And that's what these titles definitely did.
Yes, looking forward to hearing the story of Thalion Software. They were, of course, an incredible German publisher back in the late 80s, early 90s, and some of those games as well. Eric Simon, our special guest, recorded live at Amiga 40 in Germany on the show. If you watch on YouTube, that video is going to be landing on Monday. For everyone else, you're going to get in the second half of this week's audio podcast. Speaking of the Amiga as well, Ravi, a bit closer to home, the next big Amiga event is coming. You've got some news.
Yes, so Kickstart is back. So this is a Kickstart Expo, which I've given a miss for a year. I've done 2 previous events, which were really good fun. Both you guys attended, and I'm sure you enjoyed it.
Explain what they are for people that haven't been to a Kickstart event and why you started it.
So it's an Amiga Expo. It's based around Amiga, kind of. There wasn't a big Amiga show that happened in the UK for a long, long time. These were happening all around the world. I thought there needed to be a specific focused Amiga one, but also, we had Joe there. He's not an Amiga guy, but he was selling PlayStation games. We had a few people there with Spectrums. We had some Atari prototypes and Atari stuff there as well. So
that was Control Alt Reese, and he got out alive as well.
Yeah, he got out alive. Yeah, no one tarred and feathered him. It was really, really good fun. Last time we had 800 people, so this is quite a significant big event. And one of the key aspects of Kickstart is, in the daytime we have the talks, we have guests, international guests come in there. We have traders, also user groups representing, showing their machines off. We have some crazy projects there. A lot of people kind of aim for the event to show off stuff, and there's quite a few announcements as well, which is really pretty amazing. Last time we had Mike Daly there, talking about Lemmings and GTA, and we also had the guys Tony and Stu as well, and they were showing off their new titles. And then we have an after party, and the after party usually gets pretty wild, pretty crazy.
I think messy is the phrase that I'd use.
Yeah, last year we had Pete Cannon, Hoffman, and it went on into the late hours, and that's usually a DJ who's based around the Amiga world or a performer. We try and go for the big names as well, and the big news is that it's back. So if you go to amigashow.com, you can check out the details. It's on the 7th and 8th of August, 2026. And we have moved. So we've moved to Derby. Now, reason we moved to Derby is it's a lot cheaper than Nottingham. People were paying a lot for their hotels at our previous venue. The venue was great last time, but this time even bigger and better. Huge hall. We've got projection screens in there. Everybody's going to be in one massive space. I think this space, they said they could have 3,000 in and out during the day. So,
what's the venue called then?
It's called the Reach Conference Centre. So it's on Pride Park, which is in Derby. It's based around the football stadium. So there's cheap hotels everywhere. There's 100 parking spaces, as well as parking just across at the football stadium, which is £2. So a very reasonable price. We tried to make it in a better venue that's cheaper for everyone, so we can get more attendees and make it easier for people to come. It's going to be a bit of a different layout as well. So we're going to have a Friday pre-party, which is going to involve, everybody coming down on a Friday because it's in the school holidays. We're going to have talks. We're going to have events going on then a VIP meal that night. Then Saturday's the big show. We're going to have everyone there doing the full trade show. And then after that, a huge after party as well. So,
nice.
Look forward to seeing you there. And hopefully there'll be some tickets on sale at early bird ones. But we'll see. Just keep an eye on the social media channels.
What are the dates again for the calendar?
The dates are the 7th and 8th of August 2026.
Yeah, so get that in there now. And of course, we'll keep you up to date with when tickets go on sale. It's good doing it in Derby as well, because I mean, even if you haven't been to Derby before, there's a bit of rich gaming history there. Obviously, Lara Croft Way that runs through the middle of Derby.
We might have a few people from Core involved, and also Eurocom as well, who are Derby based. So,
Yeah, so looking forward to that. One for the calendar next year, Kickstart back for 2026. So let's hop into the big stories that we've been checking out over the last week. This is not somewhere that we often go on this podcast. We're going to be talking about the NEC SuperGrafx for our first story. Got one of those in your collection, Joe? Do I see one behind you on the shelf?
Yeah, can't say I do. Can't say I do at all. I you know what? I didn't know this was a separate console for the TurboGrafx. I get very confused with it's called the NEC, isn't it? NEC, the company behind it. Get really confused with anything PC Engine TurboGrafx related, because of it really wasn't big in the UK. It barely existed in the UK.
I don't ever remember seeing one back in the day. Yeah,
there's a collaboration with them and Hudson Soft as well. But who we know about our good arcade history.
Well, to give you a bit of background on the SuperGrafx, that was a very short-lived system. Only ever came out in Japan. Came out in 1989. It was meant to be an enhanced successor to the PC Engine. That was, it was a successful console in Japan. And their idea was that it would kind of bridge the gap between the PC Engine that was an 8-bit system, and obviously the 16-bit systems are on the way, the Mega Drive and Super Famicom. Quite an expensive system. It was 39,800 yen when it first got released. And it was essentially an upgraded PC Engine, not though a full generational leap, but it had some interesting hardware in there as well. So it had the same CPU as the PC Engine, but it had 2 video display controllers that allowed it to have things like more sprites, extra background layers. It gave it better parallax scrolling as well. 512 colors compared to 482 on the PC Engine, and quite impressively up to 128 sprites on screen, compatible with all the PC Engine games, but not many games actually came out for this system. The closest comparison I could think of is, you mentioned then, Joe, you didn't realize it was a separate console. That apparently was a big part of the reason that this failed. I think it was almost comparable to the Wii U, to the Wii.
Yeah.
People wonder whether it was just like an add-on. They weren't really sure it was its own system. So it absolutely bombed when it came out.
Yeah, it sold 75,000 units. That would have been funny if I just said it sold 75 units. 75,000 units before they pulled the plug on it and just focused on the PC Engine and the CD-ROM, the PC Engine CD, TurboGrafx CD. They just kind of focused on that instead. And like you say, I think 5 games officially came out for it, which is crazy. But basically, this is a modder / developer called Genesis 814, who is basically taken to X to say, look at what you could have had if we did support this, if we did buy this, if we continued down, we said on last week's episode, in a parallel universe where Sega Saturn won, maybe this is a parallel universe where, the TurboGrafx won and the SuperGrafx continued. But basically, this is a tech demo using the game In the Hunt, which In the Hunt was only a game I discovered a couple of years ago, which is a lot of people say predecessor to Metal Slug. It was by the same studio did Metal Slug. Extremely similar graphics and art style.
I was about to say Metal Slug, because it looks very similar. Yeah.
It's very, very Metal Slug, and basically it's a underwater submarine game, 2D game, using beautiful, beautiful sprites and parallax scrolling and stuff. But it came out on the Sega Saturn and the PS1, and the art style, like I say, is exactly the same as like Metal Slug, but came out a little bit before Metal Slug, and the submarines that you control, very, very similar to submarines that you can get in the Metal Slug games and stuff like that. But like I say, they were 32-bit consoles, game. It was a 32-bit game. He has got this game, not the game, but he's got a tech demo of the game running on a SuperGrafx 16. So obviously using 16-bit technology. It looks stunning, to be fair.
It looks arcade, doesn't it? It looks bonkers.
The size of those sprites is jaw-dropping. There's some massive sprites in this game.
It looks fantastic. The parallax scrolling in the background, you've got the clouds going. and then you've got the little submarine going in the water, and then you've kind of got this like, oil rig kind of like in the background as well. And the art style on it, I mean, I love the art style of the Metal Slug games anyway. And In the Hunt, I've got it on the Sega Saturn. It looks really, really good, and it just kind of shows off the potential of, I guess, a console that died, very, very quickly. And I guess definitely our side of the world, I don't know about in Japan, an extremely forgotten console, because like you just pointed out, I said before, I didn't even know it was a separate thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was an add-on. I actually thought the SuperGrafx might have been, up until 10 minutes ago, I would have said, oh, was that the CD add-on that they did for the TurboGrafx? But no, that was just the CD add-on,
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was that kind of like in-between stage. But yeah, this looks stunning.
Well, at the moment, this is, they do point out it's only a graphic demo, so it's not really representative. The game might have not have performed that well when you're actually playing it. It's like a scrolling demo that you can watch, but you can download it if you want to play it on you have got a SuperGrafx lying around. It's interesting as well, I was looking this up, only 5 games ever came out on the SuperGrafx, which is nuts. The only one I've heard of is there's a really good port of Ghouls and Ghosts on there.
Oh, okay.
There's also 1941 Counterattack Capcom. They released that game on there as well. There's also Battle Ace. There was a game called The Mission Code for Rage Crisis. Aladdin's, never heard of that before. Mado King Granzort was another one as well. There's also a hybrid release, Darius Plus, that came out on the PC Engine and the SuperGrafx. He had some slightly better graphics, some more colors on the SuperGrafx. I mean, again, I imagine even in terms of collectors today, I imagine it's probably a system that fetches a fair bit of money because of its rarity. But probably, I think just having something extra just to run on there, because it's got like, barely any exclusives. I think anything extra in the library is probably going to be a bonus for fans of the SuperGrafx. So yeah, like you said, Joe, it's always interesting to kind of see that what if, isn't it? Like, alternate dimension, the games that we could have got on there. So if you want to check out that tech demo, I'll link that in this week's show notes. Now, Cambridge University want your floppies. Now, this story is pretty cool. Cambridge University are currently they're running something called Future Nostalgia. This is a project that they've got where they want to save, they're calling it decades of digital history from the public's floppy disks.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. So, digital preservation is a huge thing. It's got a really high priority at the moment because stuff's running out of time, they're degrading. You need to save these things. We've always been really into, preserving these stories on the podcast. I think preserving, digital information, putting stuff on archive.org is kind of a thing that the hobbyist and the retro scene's done quite a lot. But it's good to see, a university taking part. Interestingly, they're talking about how they had a library that holds some old Stephen Hawking information and some of his early research drafts and personal files in Cambridge University. My uncle's a professor there, and he saw Stephen Hawking once in Tesco's, and he tells us that he kind of saw him there. It's great that they're using the kind of tools that have also been developed within the retro community. The Cairo Flux as well, which we've talked about a lot on the podcast, the Grease Weasel interface as well. These are all technologies that have come out of these people that have a love for floppy disks. Recently, we had Rob Smith on, and I was wondering if he had his, floppy disk cleaning station with the disc of music that he could actually have in Cambridge University, playing Car Wash constantly.
He should donate one to this effort. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this is great because they're going to need, if they're taking the public's ones. I think that's a huge project. I think it's good looking for stuff that's within like academic organisations in the archives and stuff. Taking on public's floppy disks, I wouldn't want to know what's on half of the floppy disks that get sent.
It could be some interesting discoveries, to say the least. I'll be handing in my copy of Jolly Roger's cookbook. Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, it was actually featured on the BBC. So they're basically inviting people to bring, discs that they've got lying around. It's funny because I was on a call the other day with one of the companies I work for, and there's one of the guys there. I think he's like early 20s, Generation Z. I think they are, aren't they? And one of the older guys there mentioned he mentioned a floppy disk, and this lad's like, "What's that? What's a floppy disk?" And when I was one of these, I reached over and picked one up, and everyone was quite impressed on the call that I had one like within reaching distance. Yeah. So
always done. You weren't using it as a tea coaster as well. You actually using it.
Well, yeah. Well, it's funny because to talk about they've got 150 discs so far in their library. I think I've got like quadruple that in the drawer behind me.
I think it's important that this is getting done. We delete stuff so quickly, digital stuff, or it just gets lost, or there's so much information out there. I've just got an image of that TV show, The Repair Shop, where someone comes in with something and goes, "I've got this old floppy disk," and then they clean it up, and there's a whole episode of them, doing that. Having someone quite like Cambridge University involved gives it some like prestige, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, the same people have already brought in stuff like, forgotten family archives, and we mentioned old research papers, decades old research. They say that the big thing they've got to get their head around is they want to make a process where, because obviously a lot of this data was made with word processors or paint packages or spreadsheets on maybe obscure platforms that are proprietary formats as well. So they need to kind of decode all that as well. So
but also make sure that emulators are reading them correctly as well, and it's getting accurately decoded. They'll probably have to have a whole process of that.
Yeah, well, they're looking at doing that at the moment, making up a transparent workflow. So apparently other institutions can do that as well. So hopefully they'll be rolling these out around the world. So
hopefully this will become a big thing, But I'd say employ someone like Rob Smith, Cambridge University, and you will, get some very accurate floppy reading. Yeah.
Isn't it funny? All that time we had "don't copy that floppy" hammered into our brain. Now they're saying "copy that floppy."
One of the greatest things I used to enjoy was receiving like an old computer online or a load of floppies, then just looking through them and seeing what people had on them,
You nosy beggar.
Yeah.
So this would be interesting though. Yeah. So if you have got any old discs, I imagine our audience will probably have a way to preserve them. But I think it is very cool for the general public. Randomly, I saw a floppy disk just at a bus stop in my village the other week. It was lying on the floor. So yeah, tempted to pick it up and see what was on it, but I didn't. So Cambridge's Future Nostalgia Project is running now for the next year. So to read more about that, I'll link that in this week's show notes. And of course, countdown to the big day is on. Spooky season nearly here, Joe. So it is horror game of the week. What you got for us this week?
You know what? I was just looking. I was like, this episode's coming out on the 24th of October.
Whoa.
So on the 31st of October on Halloween, we will have the final episode of October. And I was like, oh, damn, am I going to run out of horror games?
Never.
Retro horror games that are going out. So this is Vampire's Veil, which is a new Castlevania-inspired Metroidvania game.
I feel like if we say horror game of the week, we also do Castlevania-inspired Metroidvania of the week as well, it seems. There's plenty of them around.
Plenty of them around. This one would be right up Ravi Street. He's into his blood and gore, aka he's not. It makes him feel weak.
I don't feel weak. I faint at the sight of it.
That's a sign of strength.
I'm making that up. So yeah, this is Vampire's Veil, which is coming out. It just says it's coming out 2025. You can already pre-order on Steam. It's apparently coming out PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch as well. So it says it boasts beautiful Game Boy Advanced style graphics. So I was a little bit like 16-bit kind of Super Nintendo style graphics in my head. But it does look really, really nice, kind of like 16-bit, 32-bit 2D style graphics.
Very nice pixel art, yeah, very nice.
Yeah, really, really nice pixel art. Like I say, Metroidvania inspired. And it's basically it's developed by a company called Fairy Cave Studio, and you play as a vampire, as a lady vampire. I'm not too sure of her name, where you are going around killing people by the looks of things.
Like vampires do.
As vampires do in kind of like turn of the century, kind of like Victorian kind of setting, very Gothic London-esque, as many of these games are that we've covered recently. But where it's the Metroidvania style, it is very much, you unlock abilities which then means you can go back to areas of the map, which then you unlock, different sections. I absolutely adore these kind of games. The powers are all very blood and vampire based. Obviously, you can restore your health by, drinking the blood of the enemies that you fight that look like they're villagers and stuff, as well as like monsters and mythical beings and stuff like that. But it's like there's like a dash ability that you can unlock, which is kind of like uses blood to jump and like double jump, and then you can dash across. So, it looks as though you will unlock those abilities as you fight, bosses.
It reminds me of Terraria, if you've ever played that.
I've not played that one. I don't think.
Yeah, it's one where you kind of have different effects and stuff, and just like the layout of it looks like Terraria.
Oh, okay.
They say, the vampire's called Celine. Turns out she's actually on a mission to free her family. So she's a goodie in the game. She's killing out of necessity, not necessarily a buddy, which is assumed with vampires. It's a vampire.
Well, I assumed.
There is a free demo that you can download now for Steam, play on Windows. So if you want to get a little taster of it as well. So like you said, coming out 2025. So hopefully we'll be out in time for Ween. Maybe by the time this podcast drops.
I promise next week's episode won't just be 7 stories of like different Metroidvania and Resident Evil.
I was looking forward to that. The horror week.
Needs to dress up as a Dracula or something. Yeah.
Now we're on video. We're all dressing up for the Halloween episode. God. Deal?
We'll see.
Guys, anyone? So if you want to get that demo now and check out the trailer as well. Looks very slick. This week's horror Metroidvania style of the week. Now, we're talking about the Sega Saturn quite a lot recently as well. Another topic that keeps popping up on this show. Seems like the Saturn is getting a lot of love in the month of October. Talked about Flashback getting ported to it on last week's show. We mentioned someone's porting Tomb Raider 2 to it as well. And now, if you haven't got the original hardware, there is good news for fans of emulation.
So, in my brain, for me, in my simpleton brain, the Sega Saturn was always this console that was like notoriously hard to emulate, to play ROMs and stuff like that on PC. Especially growing up. I don't know if it still is, because now, we've covered a few times different emulators that have come out for it. So this is one that came out earlier this year. And I think, is it called Ymir? I'm not too sure how you pronounce it.
Maybe the Y is silent. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe it's but it's spelled YMIR. And this is a updated version of it. So this is version 0.2.0, which is boasting that 90% of the Sega Saturn library is now compatible with the emulator. And funny enough, last week's show on the last week's show on the Patreon news section, I covered a Japanese Sega Saturn game, and I did look up how many Sega Saturn games there was in Japan, and there was a library of 1,028 games. So I'm assuming it's 90% of those games, and not just like the PAL or US releases. But they're saying 90% of the games are now playable. So they're not perfect. So they described that 4.6% of the library is perfect, and then 86.2% of it is playable. Then the further 4.7% of the library will boot into the game, and then there's 2.8% of the game library where just nothing happens when you boot up the game in the emulator. It doesn't say what those games are, but I guess my point is maybe you guys know, is the Sega Saturn becoming, I wouldn't use the word easier, but much more accessible without the hardware, I'm guessing.
I think in terms of, because obviously the hardware was it had a complex architecture, didn't it? And even back then, I remember hearing stories of developers struggling to code games for it, even back in like 94, 95, just because of how complex it was. I think the fact that it is so unique, and the architecture, with the parallel processors and 2 CPUs and stuff, I imagine that probably doesn't make it an easy system. So, I think in terms of what you mentioned, that it's playable now, but I don't think it's still easy. I mean, the fact that 30 years later we still haven't got 100% emulator for it proves that it is probably quite a challenge.
I think they're saying that they've increased accuracy with a low-level CD block emulation, which I think I could be wrong on this, but it's the speed that the CD's read at, and it's a bit slower which creates it, which makes it more accurate, basically. That's my interpretation of it, I guess. I'm not really that deep into how the Saturn works, but sounds like a really good thing as well. And I can imagine there's quite a few titles that do hardware tricks and, odd things that we don't usually see with other consoles. And that's probably why. I remember, the Saturn was one that was notoriously hard to do any piracy on or a chip on the machine as well, because of
I managed
the way that the way that it worked. Yeah, I know you were offering to do it for a long while, but then it was the VCD, wasn't it? That they kind of used the VCD card to do that. But yeah, it does seem like a strange machine the way that it works, and they're kind of working out the secrets of it now.
I imagine we did kind of talk about it on last week's show as well, the fact that it fell in that kind of between the 2D and the 3D era, but also that it was basically designed as like an arcade 2D machine, and then suddenly they bolted on all the 3D stuff kind of midway through development, which I imagine made the architecture a bit more complex than it probably should have been.
I've just found the list. It does include the Japanese games. Right. It's a really comprehensive list, actually. There's over 2,000 games tested, because they've tested PAL games, NTSC U games, NTSC Japanese games. So they've tried all the different versions of these games as well. So they've really, 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 gone to town on this. It's not like, we tested 300 odd games which came out in America. It's, all the Japanese games are on there as well. There's a handful of games they haven't tested yet, but they're like really, really obscure Japanese games. But yeah, crazy list, to be honest. I
was just trying to find the emulator that I tried a few years ago. I think it was called SSF. And there's one on RetroArch as well called Beetle Saturn, I think it was called. Because I did a video where I recorded like some game footage from a Saturn. I remember it even on like an i7. I remember it being pretty laggy. So yeah, I think that did kind of trigger a memory there that maybe my computer was just crap and I was trying to do too much. But I remember that not being that great. We're going back like 5 years probably.
This would lead to something like a Saturn Mini in the future. If this improves.
Opening a can of worms there. Yeah. But I mean, I've actually got a Saturn. I think I picked that up for about 40 quid. But we're going back around 2012 maybe. What do they go for now when you see them at the markets?
Generally £100 plus. You funny enough, I see a lot of boxed ones for like 200, 250, but I think I got my Sega Saturn in, I want to say 2006-ish. And I'm pretty sure it was about 30 quid from the local secondhand game shop. I can see it right now, right next to me. And those are on video, part of my Sega Saturn collection behind me. But yeah, they're generally quite expensive now. Obviously, there's the Mark 1 and the Mark 2 versions in PAL territories as well. And I forget which one's which, but the one with the nicer controller generally goes for more. But they're not cheap, no. And then the games are definitely not cheap. The sports games and some of the fighting games are on the cheaper end. But when you start getting to the RPGs and the shooters and stuff, they're really, really expensive.
Especially the Japanese imports. I've seen, Had a great library, didn't it, of like Japanese shoot 'em up sales here. But yeah, if you want to get hold of those, like you're talking big money. So yeah, if you want to play Money PC, looks like a nice new way to play them with even more accuracy for the Sega Saturn. So if you want to check out that emulator, new update to that just being released for, how do we say it? Yammer. So that is available now. Yeah, and I'll link that in this week's show notes. Now, you are on a mission to rinse all your spooky games before Halloween, aren't you? Another creepy game. This is a cult classic, a game called Fear Effect. But it's apparently back. This is a game, I wasn't familiar with this, but came out back in the year 2000. It's from IDOS Interactive, one that I missed first time round, but it's had a re-release.
I missed it as well. So I couldn't tell you if it was a spooky game or not, but apparently this is it's a horror cross action genre game, Fear Effect. It's getting re-released through limited run on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and for the first time on Steam as well. From what I understand, it plays very much like Resident Evil, kind of like tank controls, isometric, kind of fixed camera. But famously, the graphics were that kind of like really nice cel-shaded graphics, and it originally came out on the PS1. And for a PS1 game, this game does look stunning. Looks like a really, really nice game. But obviously, with it being limited run, their re-releases are always fantastic. They've obviously added some quality of life features in the re-release, which I think I'll grab this digitally because, like I say, it's a game I've never played. Completely missed.
Tell me there's a rewind function, Joe.
There is a rewind function. So there is time rewind, quick saves, ultra fast loading times, which I would expect for a 25-year-old game playing on modern consoles and systems. Optional tank style controls. So the tank style controls are optional now, so you can play them with just the analog stick just moving around.
That is appreciated. I mean, obviously you're like a Resident Evil connoisseur. When you play the originals, do you stick it on tank controls?
I still play with tank controls.
No.
However, rewind features, quick saves, faster loading times, spot on. Widescreen support obviously as well. Absolutely spot on. Obviously, he has your retro filters in there, your scan lines, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not usually fussed about that. I never kind of play these retro games with that. But definitely cool to see. It's not like an unknown game. It's not like a hidden gem as far as I know. It's just one that has completely passed me by. I really don't know a lot about it. I don't know if it's at a look it looks very cyberpunk, very Matrix. But I hear it is a horror game, and it says the enemies are unimaginable monsters. But I'm people might be screaming at me right now, like, this guy loves Silent Hill and Resident Evil, and he's never played Fear Effect. Well, I'm going to try. I'm going to try when this comes out for a limited
looks
run.
Looks up your street. Yeah,
it looks up my street. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to play it. Not too sure when it comes out. I don't think there's a release date as of yet. And obviously, we're getting to the back end of 2025 now, so. They're not saying 2025 release. They're now just saying 2026 release and stuff like that for a lot of these, games that are getting announced. But yeah, apparently it is a horror action game. So one I'm looking forward to, and hopefully won't miss this time and have to play, the holographic version of it in another 25 years time when it gets re-released again.
I mean, for a PlayStation 1 game, I'm watching some gameplay footage of it. Yeah, it graphically looks really impressive. It came out in 2000. So obviously, the PS2 was kind of coming on the market then. Yeah. So they had time to learn the hardware kind of inside out. But yeah, from what I can see, it's one of the best looking PS1 games I think I've seen. Yeah, so probably nice to see a game like this getting a bit of love. Yeah, so look out for that coming soon to modern systems and Steam as well. Fear Effect returns. Now, another game that it is always nice to see back, and this has been back a bunch of times on many different systems. A game that I used to love playing in the arcade back in the day. The cutesy but infuriating Collect 'em All. I think that's probably how you describe this game. Bubble Bobble has got a nice new Commodore 64 port.
This looks lovely. I'm a fan of Bubble Bobble. I also used to play it in the arcade, and used to play it on other systems as well. Amiga port was quite good as well.
Yeah.
But this looks like it's a remaster. C64, beautiful having the SID music, in there, of course. This is an interesting remaster because it's kind of a tribute to it. It's like they've redrawn it, and they've got the original assets from the arcade, but also they've done some new features. So one interesting aspect that I think we don't see on many titles is they're optimizing it for modern monitors as well as CRTs. So, the old ones would always be aimed with CRTs in mind. And, stuff looks different on a modern monitor. So redrawing those sprites and graphics to match a modern monitor is a really interesting move, because you're still using the C64. It's still the kind of original hardware, but with those modern monitors. CRTs are getting increasingly harder to find and maintain as well. I think I've got a little graveyard in my cupboard of 2 or 3 CRTs at the moment that I'm trying to get repaired desperately. So
you never get rid of them though. You just keep them for a rainy day. Yeah, one day you'll get them working.
One day I'll find a man or a woman who knows exactly what they're doing and isn't gonna kill themselves with one of these CRTs.
You probably work them to death with all the repairs that you'll tell everyone, hey, well, I found someone who's going to fix CRTs. But this is David Bettino. Now, interestingly, he also did that Toki Commodore 64 remaster that I think we talked about a while ago. It's interesting because I do remember the Commodore 64 version of Bubble Bobble being very well received. So I did wonder at first, because I know recently we got like an Outrun enhanced version for the Amiga, but that was famously a really bad port on the Amiga. So I wondered, I thought, well, was Bubble Bobble crap on the Commodore 64? Looked into it and I thought, yeah, my perspective was right. I mean, I always remembered it being, met with quite critical acclaim when it came out on the 64. A lot of people regard it as one of the best games ever that came out, arcade ports on the 64. But he just loved the game. So really what he's done is he's kept it faithful, but he's done a hack of the original program rather than doing a complete rewrite. As you mentioned, he's a pixel artist, so he's redesigned the sprites and the backgrounds to make it have, a much more closely to the arcade version, really.
Seems like if this was, a ROM that you'd have, it'd be like a ROM hack. But it's interesting as well because everything pops a little bit more. The way that he's redone it, and I can imagine with monitors with their different resolutions as well, it's gonna really pop out, and greater colors. It's also got remade soundtrack as well, which is nice to hear, and it is one person, but they've got other people in there as well on this remaster team, and it is like a nice idea, just aiming to get one of these titles and jazz it up a bit. That's what it kind of is.
I think bringing over the arcade graphics as well and kind of porting those to the Commodore 64. Because, I mean, there is a little comparison if you check out the his itch page where you can download this. It is a comparison between the arcade and the C64 remaster graphics. And obviously, the C64, it's got quite a, should we say, some people call it a dull palette. Bit of a muted palette would be nice. Yeah. But I think he's done quite well in terms of porting over the arcade graphics to the C64's palette.
Are you still rocking a C64, Dan? Because this is an alien world to me, C64, you say. I
do have one at my feet, funnily enough. Yeah. Don't use it as a footrest or anything. Don't get annoyed. It is under my table because I've got my Mega 65 set up next to me, which I use. It plays Commodore 64 games as well. So I shall be playing this on there.
Which you probably use a modern monitor on as well.
No, I've got my my old Philips CM88332. I'm not that, you know that, Ravi. I'm a bit of a purist with the display.
I need to come around and grab one. Yeah,
from my cold dead hands. So keep my CRTs. Got two of them working at the moment. One of them's a little bit iffy. I've got to waggle the wire a little bit, but yeah, fingers crossed they'll last a bit longer. But yeah, this looks awesome. So if you get hold of that is available for, it's one of those name your own prices, or you can download it for free if you want, but nice to throw a few quid in to support the efforts. So that's on Dave's itch page, which I will link up in this week's show notes. All right, then, patrons, got a few stories on the way just for you in a minute. We do that every week on the podcast, just for the patrons. I'll give you a few extra news stories because we chop the ads out. And also we do a hangout as well that is coming up at the end of the month. So if you'd like to join the October hangout, all the details to join our wonderful patrons community are on the website at theretrohour.com. We also do a bonus podcast called The After Hours, just for our patrons. You can unlock all of this by signing up right now. And we wanted to induct a few new members into the world's most prestigious high score table, which is the Retro Hour Hall of Fame. Ravi, I forgot the jingle again.
Hall of Fame.
It is in different styles every week. Might just keep this going now, yeah. I'll put a bit of like synth music under it now. So let's welcome on our latest additions to our patrons roster. A big thank you to Edward Cope,
Clint Humphrey,
and Psychosis,
who all joined our wonderful patrons community over the last few weeks. Massively appreciate your support there, and helps us keep the lights on well into 2026. So if you'd like to join our wonderful patrons community, all the details at theretrohour.com. Right, then we've got this week's special guest, Eric Simon, recorded live at Amiga 40 in Germany, going inside the world of Thalian software. That video is going to be landing on Monday for our YouTube viewers. Everyone else, we're getting it in part 2 of the audio podcast in just a minute. Now, before we do that, let's take a second to give a massive thank you to our longest running supporter on this humble podcast. It is our mates at Bitmap Books. And let's talk about their incredible book, 50 Indie Games That Changed the World. Because, we've talked before, and we actually did a whole episode, didn't we, with Aaron Potter, who is the author of this amazing new book on the podcast last month. And The reason we love this so much is because we talked about this before. Indie games are such a big part of what we cover on this podcast and such a big part of the retro scene, aren't they?
Yeah, I think indie games are where the innovation is. And it's great to see them put together. This isn't like a top 50. This is a choice of 50 games. And there's some really interesting ones, totally different ones as well. And also like bitmap books, just the quality of the books, just absolutely stunning. Like when I look at them, the print on there and just how it's presented, the hard case as well. And you often have that little bookmark in the middle. It's just a really premium book experience.
Yeah, they often cover art, but I think their books are like works of art in themselves. It's gorgeous looking, and pop off your shelf as well. I've got a whole collection of bitmap books now, and we did Aaron on the show to talk about this. And as you mentioned, Ravi, it's a curated list, isn't it? Where it's kind of talked about, 50 of his favorites, 50 that he thinks changed the world, that were really influential. And he takes on a bit of a journey, an analytical deep dive into the game's production, talking to some of the small teams, some of them solo creators as well, original interviews in here, and of course the artwork beautifully presented, as with all of Bitmap Books volumes. And it really gives you a bit of an insight into what it takes to get a video game made outside of the typical AAA studio system. So you'll hear the stories behind 50 of these incredible games.
And some huge games that Axiom Verge is in there, Hotline Miami, Super Meat Boy as well, Terraria, The Binding of Isaac as well, which is really good. I've got that on my Wii U. Just some really awesome titles. Fez as well. Really beautiful, innovative ones.
Shovel Knight, amazing game.
Raid.
In there too. Yeah, so it's just a real celebration of indie games. A lot of retro kind of inspired games in here as well. So if you're a fan of the indie game scene, really insightful book. You can check it out right now, an audio copy, and check out the rest of their collection as well. They've supported this podcast. We're working it out. It's coming up on 8 years. I think Bitmap Books have sponsored this podcast, so show them a bit of love back to really help us out. So all the details on their website at bitmapbooks.com. And we thank Sam and the team at Bitmap Books for their continued support of our show. All right, well, thank you so much for checking out the news this week. We do it every Friday for you. A separate video on YouTube, audio podcast lines every Friday as well with the interview rolled in. So we'll have more news for you on next Friday's show, and enjoy our interview with the legendary Eric Simon of Thalion, recorded live at Amiga 40 in Germany.